Hi, everyone. Teresa Aker from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. It's my pleasure today to bring you Bubba Startz. He's a musician and he's going to play a song for us right now.
Thanks for having me, Teresa. This is a song that I have out available everywhere on Spotify and YouTube. This one's called Triple Fine by Starts and Ends. No other to pour that love on me like water. We got an ocean full of love that's made for two. We can sail upon the ocean breeze and sunshine feels like you loving me. We got a good thing going on, you know that's true. I'm feeling fine, fine, fine. Pour your love on me like wine. Come on, mama, fill me up. Let me take a sip from your loving cup. Feeling fine. Pour your love on me like wine. Well, I like waking up lying next to you and the sun's so hot and the sky's so blue. There ain't a single thing that I'd rather do than spend all my time making love to you. Ain't got a plan, just a way to live and a big bag of love that we love to give out to the world through song and show. If you're getting on the bus, let's go. I'm feeling fine. Pour your love on me like wine. Come on, mama, fill me up. Let me take a sip from your loving cup. Feeling fine. Pour your love on me like wine. I'm feeling fine.
And I love it. Thank you for doing that, Bubba. That was really good. It's hard to do it on right here just on the screen, but wow, well done. Will you sit and talk with us for a little bit then,
I
Bubba?
would love to do that. Thank you.
I'm going to do a quick bio about you. I didn't do that in the beginning because I wanted to hear you with your music. So just give me a second here. Bubba is the founder of Scene Projects Podcast Network, executive producer, and host of Get Better Together Project and Songwriter Showcase. So let's talk about you, Bubba. Let's talk about where it all started. You have a great voice. And
Thank you.
let's talk about your podcast.
Thank you. The Scene Projects came about because of my music. I was releasing some music last year and did the media tour. I live in South Dakota, so it was a short tour, a lot of miles, but very few locations to hit. Two of the places that I did were friends of mine's podcast, who I've been a fan of. And when I went in studio with my friend in his home studio, I was like, hey, I got that. And hey, I got that too. And I was like, I have a podcast studio, don't I? And sure enough, I did. And I had a phone full of artists' phone numbers already. And I really just dedicated myself and what was the last 12 months to just getting these people on the phone, having conversations. And now it's grown into helping podcasters get started in this industry. If I can do it, you can do it too. And really just been pulling on a thread. That's the way I put it. A year ago, Teresa, I was a welder in a factory.
Oh.
And to be able to change that life and to do what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to perform and I've wanted to be part of a music community. Now we're building a community around ourselves. We're part of several, and now we're just trying to be a link in the chain to all of those. I get to talk to all of my friends all week long. I'm sharing their stories and their songs, and it's just been an incredible experience these last 12 months.
You're awesome. Just so you know, I couldn't sing if my life depended on it. So I appreciate really good talent. I definitely love music though. So just so you know, you sound great. And you know what? It's so nice because I bring also people, singers on my show, comedians. It's not easy when you're starting out, and podcasters. I actually have had a few podcasters, and we all had to start somewhere. Bubba?
Exactly. And I think a lot of podcasters get caught up on having like the perfect setup. And to some degree, I was as well. I was like, oh, I had all the microphones already. I had the programs to edit the sound. I just didn't necessarily know how to do it.
Right.
And the information was out there. I just wasn't committing to it. So after quitting the welding job, and I thought I was going to be a rock star, Teresa. I
You
I
are a
thought we
rock
were
star,
touring all
Bubba.
summer. Thank you for that. But yeah, I thought I was going on the road and doing all those things. We live in a small town, middle of South Dakota. I'm about 90 minutes from anywhere that has more than 50,000 people. So to do the rock star thing was going to mean being away from home all the time. And I really just wasn't, after doing it for the summer, being away for sometimes a week or 10 days at a time away from my wife and children, that I was like, that's not really what I want to do. I still want to be around the music industry. I love to perform, but to really be a successful touring musician, that means you're on the road 6, 8 months of the year. And I just really wasn't ready to commit to that. I have small children from 12, 9, and 8 right now. They're in the busy time of their lives, of their childhood. And I didn't want to be gone for all of that. So it really steered me. I already had the podcast, but it steered me into, how do we make this podcast work so we can do this from home or however that we choose to record the content, and we're not gone all the time. So right now we're just not just becoming broadcasters, but that's why it's a network, realizing that not just one podcast would be enough to entice potential advertisers and things like that. So you have to be like a radio station. You have to also offer multiple programs. You have to offer things that are for different people. And that's how we ended up with 4 shows currently. We're always trying to bring in other creatives and sharing, cross-promoting their content. We're working on that model right now, what it looks like to have a network. This is all new, a brand new industry. And we're just looking to capitalize on it here early on and to build something that lasts a lifetime. Podcasts aren't going anywhere. They are not. They're only going to take up more and more of the advertising pie that's out there available. People are already spending money with organizations that have audiences. Why not us? Is essentially what it came back to. Why not us? Why aren't we worth supporting? So starting with my music community and then just branching out. Now we're really into the podcast industry and realizing that our stories are changing our lives and they're changing other people's lives. Hearing people share the story, and we can get into a little bit of my past as well, but sharing that and being honest about my story is not just healing me, but it's going to help other people out there as well. And I say on my podcast all the time, if it just changes one person and that one person is me, then I've already won. If you're going to measure success in lives changed, you can't lose.
That's wonderful. And we are going to get into your backstory, Bubba, because I do know a bit of your backstory. But one of the big things I wanted you to know, I named this show Success Diaries because I absolutely went through my own things, and I knew people who'd been through trauma and drama and also starting out in life, and they became absolute success stories in their own right. And whatever you label success as, that's what matters. It's not about all the money in the world. It's not about all the attention in the world. It's just your success story. And some people, I don't know how they got through it. I would have had a tough time going through it, and I'm impressed. They did really well. So when I bring that back to you, I want you to tell us your story if you're willing to share that, because honestly, I think it's commendable where you've come from and where you are right now. And then we want to find out where you're going. So will you start with that, Bubba?
We did it in Tarantino fashion and we started at the end,
Yes.
right? So the network and the podcast is what I'm doing now.
Yes.
And that's the future. But the beginning was just in music, 18, 19 years old, hitting the road with a guitar on my back and just going out to live my life. It was obvious after about 2 weeks at South Dakota State University, that school was not for me. And in fact, probably school in general wasn't for me. I wasn't into acquiring debt just to gain a piece of paper. And it was obvious that things were changing. I'm 38, I'll be 39 in May. It was obvious to me in 2004, 2005, like, you're going to get out and not be able to find a job with that piece of paper and then still have all of this debt that you're carrying. So I dropped out of school after a semester and decided, I read Jack Kerouac's On the Road around that same time. So that may have a little bit to do with this. But I was like, hey, if that's a life that I can choose to go live, I would rather go try that and see what happens. no kids, no girlfriend, no anything like that, no strings. Yeah, just threw the guitar on my back and started traveling the West Coast. I lived in Bend, Oregon, and traveled and home base from there. Never had really an apartment or anything. I was sleeping on couches or outside or wherever. I say I experienced homelessness. I was never per se homeless. I didn't have an address necessarily, but I was choosing that path. I was a vagrant more than anything, where I was just like, I don't need a roof over my head to be happy, especially when the West Coast weather is far more favorable to that than South Dakota winters. That lasted till about 2009. And being around music, I had got in some trouble out there doing music festivals and things and partaking in the drug and party scene that eventually leads you to legal troubles if you're not careful. And if you have no safe place, then you're in dangerous places all the time. So got in some trouble, got on probation out there. $1,000 fine might as well have been $1 million to me at that point. I wasn't really in the working and living that life mode, right? So I knew they wouldn't chase me back to South Dakota. So I said, hey, I'm going back home. And I went and did the band stuff there for a bit. I formed Starts and Ends, which is how I record all of my music now. So STARTZ is how you spell our last name. So we just said and ENDZ to keep the Z's going. And yeah, my dad was in the band with me and other gentlemen, and we just did the band thing for a few years, recorded an album. And as that fizzled out, I had my first son, Judah, in 2012. And his mother and I didn't get along. It did not end amicably either. And it was at that point that playing music wasn't working anymore, because now I had a stack of lawyer bills that needed to be paid in order for me to see my son. And at that point, being someone who had not developed any working skills to that point, all I had done was sell drugs and play music, and playing music wasn't affording enough money to pay the bills that I had. I just chose the more lucrative financially of the two options. And for the next 3 years, I just sold drugs. I sold a lot of pot and just did that because I needed the money for no reason that I wanted to live some kind of lifestyle. I was really just selling weed because it was the only thing I knew how to do to make the kind of money that I needed to pay a lawyer to see my son. And you can only walk that path for so long without finding yourself in more legal trouble. And when that happened in true Johnny Depp in Blow fashion, I was like, screw you. I'm going to Mexico. You'll never catch me there. And in that time, had a son down there with a wife, a woman that I had met before leaving. My ex-wife gave me 2 kids. My son, Mickey, was born down there. My daughter, rather, Cora, was conceived there. And it was at that point that I knew I needed to come home. I needed to pay the piper, right? It was, I'm not going to ruin my kid's life because I didn't want to go and deal with the things that I needed to deal with. So at that point, we decided that coming back to the States, this is 2016, came back. And came back in June of 2016 and went straight to jail. Did not pass go. I didn't even make it across the border technically before they were putting me in the back of a car. And then I just had to go live that life, right? I had to pay those dues to take accountability for my actions. No matter what the motives were for those actions, they were still illegal. They're no longer selling it as illegal still, but I can possess more now with my medical card than what they caught me with. But that's a story for another day, maybe.
I understand.
And yeah, it was just that commitment. It was making the choice to take accountability. You screwed up, young man. You need to go do these things and to take care of this so that you can be there when your kids need you. Now, neither one of my young children remember me being in prison. They were 2 and 3 when I got out. They have no recollection of me being there whatsoever. But I do miss my daughter being born. She was actually born the day that I got to the prison officially, right? The birth of two things at one time. And I had to go and to do that. But prison didn't break me. And in fact, it did everything to build me into the man that I am today. I found sobriety for the first time in maybe forever. I've been smoking pot and drinking alcohol since I was maybe 12, 13 years old. Not every day, but on a fairly regular basis for a teenager. The courses that they offered there were for welding classes. That's where I learned to have a trade, right? When it was obvious that playing music and selling drugs was no longer going to be a tenable career choice. We used it. I used that time to make something of my life. I ended up meeting my wife. She was a correctional officer there. We didn't start dating, obviously, in the prison, but when she left her job and moved to the Black Hills of South Dakota, where I knew I was paroling to, she left a few months ahead of when I did. And knowing that when I got out, that was one of the first things that I tried to do, was to find her and to start a relationship with this woman that I had met, my wife, Danielle, now. And yeah, it's hard to look back and regret any of the time in prison, because it allowed me the time to stop. It was my first time in my life, Teresa, where I wasn't in survival mode, right? Even the time where I was living with my son, Judah, and his mother, or I was living with my dad and playing in the band, I had never gotten out of survival mode mentally. So prison taught me that you can build a life. You can, just because you don't have anything now doesn't mean that you're going to not have anything forever. And hearing other gentlemen in there, hearing some of their stories and realizing that my situation wasn't even the worst that I'd heard. So there was a humbleness to it. A year in Mexico, in third world, fourth world Mexico, not on a resort, no, these people were sleeping we lived in dirt floor places while we were down there. I played my guitar in the mercados and the square to feed my family. For 200 pesos a day, I was working construction jobs. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the exchange rate, but that's about $10 a day. But we survived. We survived off of that, Teresa. And it was like, okay, if this is what it costs to live here, why, for one, does it cost so much more to live in the United States, right? Why does food and why do these why do they cost so much more here? And if you can make it here, in the most destitute of situations, you're in a foreign country where no one speaks the same language as you. We were in a place where very few people spoke English. We were the only Caucasians around, which was good and bad. It definitely opened some doors for me, because we were not a commodity, but we were an oddity. We were unicorns. Yeah. Some of these small children had never seen a white person before. They've only seen brown people. It was different, right? It was a different time, but it was obvious when it was time to come home that we needed to come home. And it's just been growing since then, and growing as a human being, taking the sobriety that I had gained, taking the work ethic that had been placed into me. I never had a problem going to work. I had a problem going to work for someone else. After 2 years of somebody telling you where you can eat, sleep, use the bathroom, and do everything right, to get out and to have somebody, point at that and go do that was fairly easy. So we just set out working, and it got me into the routine of waking up at 5 a.m. and going to work every day and doing this. And at the beginning of last year, I was probably 40, 50 pounds overweight. I was drinking beer all the time. I was sliding back into old habits, right? But now, given a framework to get out of it, I started climbing the ladder. I was like, okay, this isn't working for you.
Right.
This is for whatever reason, just living that life of going to work and to doing that, it was crushing my soul. I wasn't playing music all the time. I wasn't invested in that community like I had been in the past. And I'd forgotten different parts of myself during that time. I
Right.
was suppressing parts of myself. And it really came down to I couldn't go to work and have people tell me what to do anymore. It just, okay, that had gone, but I still had this routine. I had this routine of waking up early and to chasing down things and having this, I'm not going to call myself brilliant, but this brain that works at a high capacity,
Yeah.
right? I'm always thinking, I'm always working through and solving problems and doing all of these things. What could I do if I set that brain to work on the things that I wanted to do? And then, yeah, March of last year, this podcast fell from heaven into my lap. And we've just been nurturing this baby and bringing it to fruition. And now this year, an organization that we're a member of, the Midwest Country Music Organization, we were at their awards show last year. That's really where we launched our podcast from. We did 25 interviews on their jam night the night before because I didn't know anyone. I just grabbed my microphones and set up in a corner and just said, who wants to talk? And so from there we launched. And now this year we are nominated for their Content Creator of the Year award. And it's just been a beautiful 12 months of my life. I don't know if I would have gotten here. I know I wouldn't have gotten here if I was working full time and giving 50, 60 hours of my time to someone else in exchange for a little bit of money. It just wasn't working anymore.
So Bubba, first I want you to know, congratulations. You went through an awful lot, which is why we have you on the show today. It's commendable. I'm so grateful you shared your story because there's so many other people out there that need to know that direction is going to take you in a place that's not conducive to a good life. You have pulled everything out of your life from the inside out and said, I want to have a good life for my family. And I commend you for that, Bubba. So first, take the win. Okay. I want you to know I'm very proud of you. And I'm sure your family's proud of you and your children are proud of you. Thank you. Number one, I want you to know you should be proud of yourself. I know you are, and the rest of the world's proud of you. Number two, thank you for bringing your message forward to help other people. Three, Bubba, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself?
On stage delivering this story to rooms full of people.
Perfect.
And to continue to grow this network, to continue to empower other creators. Whether
Correct.
you're a podcaster or a songwriter or a filmmaker or an artist, a painter, whatever, I just want to be around creative people. And to have a podcast, we do an online blog or magazine. I'd like to develop that idea further. Something that we used to have in music scenes around the country that there's just fewer and fewer of now is the kind of weekly art magazine, right? And something I saw a lot when I was in Oregon and California, that South Dakota had one. And then when that went away, we have none. So that's the kind of idea started there of building communities. Teresa, that's all I want to do is not just build the scene projects, but to help other people build their own communities and to change people's lives. Because just like you said about my story is going to help some young man who is headed down the wrong path to veer away from that and to change that. And I know that's true because my life has been changed by listening to other people's stories. Yeah. And I'm a member of a network called the C-Suite Network, the C-Suite Radio Network and TV Network. And they're on our founder, Jeff Hazlett, is on TV every day. He has a business show on MSNBC. They just signed the New York Stock Exchange and all of their programs into our network. So not only am I doing something, but I'm part of a larger community that's doing even greater things. They were just at the New York Stock Exchange on the floor. I don't know if they rang the bell or not this weekend, but they're out there talking with the bigwigs from X and from all of these other major media outlets. And his goal is to have us all on TV. Buddy, I'm here for that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So we're just developing, I call the scene projects the JV team to that level, right? We're going to get people off of the sidelines and into the game. And we're going to teach them how to be really effective at the game. And if you get good enough, then we have a place for you to go. We have somewhere where you can go that I'm walking right now. I'm walking this path so that I can hold the door open for you when I get to the end of it. So that I can walk this. And every time that we walk through a door, I'm sitting there and holding it and bringing more people in with me.
Perfect.
I don't want success for myself. I'm already successful. I get to do a thing that I love to do from the privacy of my own garage, right? My beautiful studio here, and I get to connect with people all over the world. That's not a possibility for most kids from South Dakota. I live a half an hour from either one of the Walmarts in town. I am in the middle of a cornfield, way out here, and absolutely loving the opportunity that podcasting is giving to all of us. This is just, it's the coolest thing.
It is. Now, Bubba, now as we wrap it up here, and I'm very grateful for your story, I have another question for you. Would you come back and see us again?
Oh my God, I would love to, Teresa, anytime.
I'm so thrilled you came on, and I have no doubt your path is just so big. So I'm hoping you'll come back, and humbly we can help you along the way. Okay, Bubba? Now
Well,
I'm going to have all of Bubba's information on here. So if you want to get a hold of him, we're going to have your social media, your podcast, everything, because you're going to make sure I have all of that. Bubba, thank you again, my friend.
Teresa, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Oh, my pleasure. I really enjoyed it. And to everyone else, this is Teresa Aker from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. I hope you're all having a great day, and I look forward to talking to you all very soon. Bye-bye.